We're going live. Okay, we're live. Okay, so welcome everybody to the second Foreman case study in Inuits. Um, Inuits is a consultant firm with a focus in open source solution. They work based in Belgium, and they have offices in other countries in Europe, like Czech Republic, Netherlands, and Ukraine. So our guests today are Kris and Julian. Can you tell us, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Kris Buytaert. I'm one of the co-founders of Inuits. We founded Inuits about 8 years ago. And as you said, we indeed are an open source consulting firm. We help organizations to, well, use open source in a better way. And that's how we ended up using tools like Foreman.
Yes, so I'm Julien. I work at Inuit for 5 years. I do mainly sysadmin stuff, and I am also using the Foreman for several years because it fills a lot of needs of enterprise I work with.
Okay. So first, maybe we want to perhaps know what kind of, so what was like the first project that you guys felt like you needed some external node classifier or some tool like Foreman to manage the inventory of virtual machines and bare metal hosts. Were you working there when Inuits deployed its first Foreman, or was it something that existed already when you guys joined?
Given that I started a company, there was nothing when I joined.
Okay.
So I think it's pretty hard to remember when we started using Foreman because we were just using Puppet as a default to run our whole infrastructure with pretty much no dashboards on top of it. And when Foreman came around, I think we started using it pretty early on
Yes.
to do mainly reporting as a starting point.
Yes, so
do you remember what version was that?
It was, I think, already 1.0 or something like that. So, but we use that as a drop-in replacement for Puppet board.
Well, we never actually used Puppet dashboards. We looked at it, we found it extremely ugly, and we never used it. And then
yes,
Foreman.
We used that at a small customer in Wallonia.
Yeah.
Then we used the Puppet dashboard, and at a certain point, we didn't need the ENC feature anymore because we wanted everything to be in Git, and then we switched to the Foreman.
Okay. So I'm curious, since you guys are a consultant firm, do you basically deploy Foreman in your client's installations, or you're given, or you have like some infrastructure set up that all your clients use, and you give them like restricted accounts to your infrastructure?
It's mostly the first. However, we do run a software as a service platform also for our customers that we manage using Foreman. We are using Foreman functionality, but it's mostly using Foreman in different kind of customer projects. I think I have about personally 3 or 4 customers where we have Foreman setups. I think Julien has a couple of others, and we're using it internally also. But different projects have different use cases. Some of them use it just for reporting. Some of them use it as an ENC. Some of them use it to provision VMs and all that stuff. So it really depends on the customer, on the use case. But when we deploy a typical Puppet stack, Foreman is usually part of that.
Okay. Okay, I think I get it then. So that means your customers, or sorry, your clients are usually like they're admins of their own Foreman installations, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you normally like work with sysadmins at your clients, or you're basically covering that role?
Depends. There's customers where we manage the infrastructure and where there's just developers there. But there's equally environments where we're just part of the team, where we help on different existing system administrators to do their job better and just to add some additional hands or some additional knowledge which don't have present yet. So it's really a mixed audience. There's no golden rule on how we work and what kind of customers we take on. It really depends on what people are looking for.
Okay. So can you maybe tell us about some interesting deployment of Foreman that you've had at some customer, like maybe try to find some deployment that was more challenging because of the features of the network where you were deploying it, or the any other characteristic of the organization. Do you remember anything special?
Yes, so currently I'm working at the customers when we used Foreman since 1.3. So each time that there is a Foreman upgrade, there is a lot of challenges because we need to test the stuff. And it's a setup where we provision on libvirt mainly. And that now we are now trying to get some more advanced network stuff. So the latest Foreman version help us about that, about bonding and stuff like that, because we are building a redundant network. So it's quite interesting. And the latest Foreman features about that are also interesting for us.
Okay. Cool. So most of your clients, I guess, they have virtual infrastructure, or you're deploying on hybrid infrastructure like bare metal and computer resources in Foreman language.
So it's pretty hybrid. I mean, our own infrastructure, we have pretty much bare metal, which we manage using libvirt, not yet using Foreman because we have a code base which is over 6-year old and we wrote our own Puppet code to manage virt install, and sometimes you need to clean that up and get rid of the technical debt, but that also takes time. It's in the planning, but we need to fix it one day, and for now it works. But then there's other projects where we integrate with Amazon, where we work with DigitalOcean and that kind of stuff. So one of the customers I've been working with last year was an interesting project where we initially took over an existing Puppet setup, which they were kind of managing by themselves. It was mostly a development firm, and they had little experience with Puppet. So when we took over their code base, their platform, they had a Puppet master with Puppet dashboard, and they never actually looked at the dashboard. So what happened there, that it was full of errors, the dashboard itself was unstable, and after a couple of weeks, we pretty much decided to switch that part and completely replace it with Foreman, because then we could also use it as an external node classifier, and we could have much better provisioning integration. So by switching from that setup, which was an Amazon C2 setup with a VPC, from where Puppet setup, where we were manually provisioning nodes from the API, over to Foreman, where we had integration, we ran into some interesting challenges, because provisioning the nodes was trivial if you didn't have a VPC, but provisioning one with a VPC was, well, not supported yet. So it was a really good experience to get actually one of the customer's developers on board and to have him debug Ruby code and fix the code. So he put in a patch that I think enabled, I don't know if it actually made it upstream, but I know he contributed it, which enabled EC2 with VPC support for us. And that was really good to get that going, because now the customer basically, from their Foreman interface, they assign a node, they put it on EC2, and it just works.
Have you found any other features lacking with respect to Amazon? I think there's a quite large number of feature requests open in the tracker in that regard. so if something especially needed right now, it would be useful like to point it out and see if we can do our best to prioritize it.
So currently not. A couple of weeks ago I was playing with DigitalOcean integration, and I was trying to figure out how their VPC kind of setup would work. I realized that when I provisioned nodes from Foreman, I actually got interfaces, but well, DigitalOcean's VPC is not really a VPC. It actually gives you a shared IP address on a shared network, which you cannot, as far as I figured out, configure via the API. So once DigitalOcean figures out how to configure and set the API and set the IP address for the internal network from the API, that would probably be a good addition for Foreman. But I don't think you can do anything about it yet because it's not supported on their side yet, unless I've overlooked APIs that aren't for the network. So
Okay.
that would probably be a good addition in the future, but for now that's not.
Is Amazon like the most common computer service that you guys have to use, or you normally are also using? Julian mentioned that you're using Libvirt. Do you deal with any other like Overt or OpenStack? Because it's one of the parts of Foreman that, in my opinion, is lacking uh, closer integration with the actual provider. So OpenStack, for instance, doesn't provide you the way for your host, for instance, in several networks through Foreman, but if you go to the OpenStack UI, then you can do it. I don't know if it's if you guys have found anything else that you want to see in terms of integration with other compute resources that are not Amazon.
Yes, so I have mainly worked with Libvirt and also a bit of VMware. But indeed, the Libvirt support is quite good. The only thing that is not possible is to edit a host, but you get all the nice features like the new VNC console that is quite great. But me, I never played with other compute resources that Libvirt and a bit of VMware.
Yeah, I think probably the reason why Libvirt is so well supported is because it's so easy to deploy that most of the developers use it in their own setup. So that's probably why. There's this thing though, provisioning pre-allocated volumes. Sorry, provisioning hosts with pre-allocated volumes is not supported yet. But I was working on that last week. We'll get back to that at some point. Okay. How about since you're working with other organizations, I wonder if you have found any value on the role-based access control system that Foreman provides, if it's sufficiently grained, or if it's just way too complicated to set up the permission for the roles and filters for any user. Is this something that customers understand, or you guys just go to your clients and provide them with roles for their setup? How would that work?
So usually there are not a lot of users on those setups apart the sysadmin. So, but what we are using is the locations and organizations. But then it's not always clear why you can do or not do some stuff. You need to define a lot of stuff into the web interface to make everything that you want work with each location and each organization. So it's quite sometimes it's quite hard to find the button to click to be able to have that partition table on that location and all that kind of stuff. So that's a bit of the downside of the location and organization stuff. What I complexity of it.
You use both at the same time, or just
Sorry?
do you use both at the same time, or just locations or organizations separately?
We use both at the same time.
Um, and about the filters and roles part, that was okay then. That was
Yes.
easy to set up and
Yes.
understandable. Cool. Yeah. Great then. Yeah, I was perhaps expecting people not to understand how to create filters or something like that. Because I don't know, already in.
I'm not sure if it's a feature that a lot of people use. I mean, I personally have never had to use it at a customer, pretty much because authentication is something which is done on Git level. People can actually push to their respective Git repositories and change the code there, rather than deploy nodes from somewhere else. So all code changes are happening anyhow on a control base on Git access level. So it might be that there's not that much people actually using it.
Okay. So are you using LDAP then? Just out of curiosity.
We're not using LDAP per se, because the Git repository could be just on GitHub, but in our internal case, that means, yes, our Git is hooked up to Redmine, which is hooked up to LDAP.
Okay.
So that's our internal tree. As for other customers where I had similar setups, it could be their internal AD, but it has also been just regular GitHub usage.
Okay, so you've not tried yet to link Foreman user groups with LDAP user groups then, right?
I didn't try that yet.
Okay.
Maybe Julian has, but I haven't.
No.
I was just wondering on what was your experience with that, because it seems also to be a pain point sometimes. Like I see some people that are having trouble configuring it and debugging it more than actually using it. So anyway, so back then to debugging then, when you guys find problems in Foreman, do you find it easy to debug? You find the logs readable? Do you think there's a does it happen often that you have to that you're for instance looking at the logs, looking for an action that is I don't know, that was triggered by an exception, and you had to dig very deep until you were able to find the actual root cause. Do you think then that the login system is working fine, or it should somehow be improved? Perhaps log more actions and give a better back traces.
No, it's very often clear the root cause of the problem that we have. The logs are quite clear. And when there are bug reports to write or stuff like that, it's quite easy to find where in the code the problem is and how to debug it. So I have no problem about that. And generally, when there is a problem, it's fixed in 5 minutes, nothing more. So.
Oh, that sounds good.
And
Yeah.
We are installing the Foreman with the Foreman installer.
Mm-hmm.
And also sometimes just running again the Foreman installer fixes some permissions and other stuff like that. So it just works very fine, and sometimes problems solved by themselves.
Great.
Well, once you get beyond the usual issues with Foreman installer, and well, the name of my blog says it all. You pretty much.
You should mention it though.
Everything is a Linux problem.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges I had a couple of weeks ago, and I still haven't solved it, is imagine I want to build a Docker container which has Foreman installed. There's no way to do that because I don't have a host name.
Yep. Yep. I don't know if you've been working with Foreman Docker yet, but I don't think we're going to be able to use the metaphor of hosts in Foreman as Docker containers. They're going to be separated.
Yeah, but even the other way around, like I just wanted to have Foreman running in a Docker container, but I want to deploy it automatically. Yes, I can log into the container manually and set it up and set a host name and do all that stuff, but build it from the Docker file, nope, won't work because I cannot set a host name at that point.
Oh,
So that's kind of
I get what you're saying. Like the Docker, you want to deploy Foreman on a Docker container, and the Docker container doesn't have a host name.
yeah,
Okay.
not a static one. So each time my Foreman boots up,
There is a. I'll send it to you later, but there is um, a GitHub repository with a Docker file that does deploy Foreman with a fake host name on the container. So at build time, it's true that you don't have the host name. So what it forces you to do is to run the installer once after you build the image, and it's already installed. So the only thing that it actually does is to set the host name. But I'll send it to you later.
I think I will do that. But
okay.
Kind
Are you actually trying to deploy Foreman in Docker containers? Or?
It really was just to have me a container around where I could spin up Foreman rather than just a Vagrant box. But now I'm still using a Vagrant box and a bunch of DigitalOcean setups we're playing with.
Okay, I actually found the link. Let's see if I can share it. There's a feature in Hangouts to do that. Can't really find where actually. Okay, I'll edit the video later and put it there. I'll send it to you in IRC though.
All right. Allergen. I probably already ranked to it. Because the two-phase approach, that's something that works, but it is indeed when you figure out that everything is a fucking DNS problem, you set your host name right and you get it solved. But people that don't realize that, they're gonna be stuck for a while. And it all makes sense, I mean, certificates and all those things, but.
Interesting.
That's another one. I thought I saw another one.
You saw a different one?
Yeah, I think I saw the one with Carlos.
Okay.
The one from Carlos is the other one. Anyhow.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I was playing with Docker Compose the other day, trying to figure out trying to get first Foreman and a volume to run on different containers, so very basic stuff. Like it worked well when getting Foreman to run. Sorry, yeah, when getting Foreman to run on nightly, just using Ruby. Just using the WebRig and MySQL volume container, but it was pretty much a nightmare to deal with if you wanted to deploy it using Foreman installer on a CentOS 7 container or anything that has systemd on it. If you guys move forward with that, it would be interesting to see if we can use it at some point to have an actual production-ready deployment of Foreman on containers. Right now, I think it's, at least for me, it's not very high priority, but
definitely not. It was just to play around and to have some Foreman set up in an isolated environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely not an actual use case.
So, okay. Another question is if you have been clients that already have Puppet, how have you dealt with higher problem? So higher already existent at the client. If you introduce Foreman, you introduce a different ENC. Have you ever had this problem, or you guys started the Puppet architecture, all of your clients?
Using Hera doesn't really mean that you also need to use it as an external node classifier. You can just use it as backend for your data, and that works perfectly. So I haven't seen too many problems there.
No, I have also seen the opposite. So a customer, when they try to put everything into the Foreman, but some of those things would better fit in Yara directly. So like putting big YAML hash in the Foreman instead of putting them in a nice Yara tree is also it's the other way around, and yeah, I think the Foreman and Yara could just play well together.
Yeah, but parameters, for instance, in Foreman, basically they overlap with higher parameters. So use the same one. Puppet is going to choose one or the other. You have not a problem.
I've not used parameters yet in Foreman.
Oh, okay.
I think the thing is, when you have a working solution, you don't start experimenting with alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
So Foreman has a lot of functionality where we probably, in a lot of setups, are only using reporting, the external node classification, and the provisioning of the virtual machines, and a lot of the other components are just unused.
So your smart proxies normally, they don't even have like the Puppet feature because you don't need to import the classes.
Yeah, that's what it has.
Oh,
That's
sorry. Yeah.
pretty much about.
I was just thinking about smart variables and Foreman. You're not using that then.
I don't have a setup which does that. Yeah, has one, but maybe some of the other guys have. I mean, I don't know what all the other projects are doing, but two of us are doing a lot of Foreman, a couple of others are doing even more.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So since I've already seen a couple of fixes that you've introduced, do you want to comment on and if there is anything that you're working on right now, any feature that needed to be completed and you guys are working on, or maybe talk about your experience submitting contributions to Foreman. How did that work?
For the moment, we are mainly facing problem that we can solve directly with templates. So we are changing the templates inside the Foreman, and I am not sure if we will be able to commit that back to the Foreman or not. So that's mainly what the problem we are facing now. Are just problem into the templates regarding the advanced networking stuff and all that kind of stuff. Also some changes regarding to CentOS 7, CentOS 6. So that kind of stuff we are working on, and we can just do that locally, and not sure that if we will have the time to put that upstream or not.
Okay. All right. Do you want to talk about any use case any of your clients? Like what kind of what's the exact use for Foreman at your some of your clients? They're running like you said, you're running a software as a service yourself with Foreman. I'm guessing if you have many installations, each of them will have a different view.
Yes, so I am currently working on R&D lab. So it's a machine that I'm using for testing of an application. So we use the Foreman and Puppet to set up all the base installation. So after that, the developers can work in their own servers. And that's the kind of setup. So a lot of provisioning, a lot of servers that are just created and destroyed, a bit like Vagrant at scale. We have some Jenkins job that also connect to the Foreman to create and destroy hosts at that setup. So that's the setup I'm currently working on. So it's a lab for software deployment. That's my current use case.
I have use cases depending on customers. A lot of it is just regular software deployment, different environments, different Puppet environments, development acceptance, production kind of stuff, where we pretty much use Foreman as a provisioner, and then as soon as the machine has been provisioned, the whole life cycle moves into Puppet and Jenkins work.
How does it move into? Yeah, so you're saying you provision hosts through Foreman, then they're not connected to it anymore? I'm not sure I got it.
They're connected to the Puppet master.
Right.
And pretty much the way we work is that Jenkins does the code promotion. Nodes will always stay in their same environment. If the environment we decommission them and we provision them in another environment, and the whole promotion of which software goes where and which code goes where, which Puppet code goes where, which variable goes there is completely controlled by Jenkins and promoted build plugins.
So it sounds like the host in Foreman will still be, sorry, the host will still be reporting to Foreman.
Yeah.
One of it. Yeah. Okay. But you just don't add any classes in there and don't touch it, just see that it's there. Okay.
No classification is done in there, and once the machine has its role in its environment, after that it happens in Jenkins. If there's code changes which are being pushed.
Oh, okay, I think I get it now. I was wondering if you're using host group provision in it or config groups.
We could use host groups, but we're not really currently. But host groups could be an alternative.
Yeah, in my project we use the host groups, and we also import the Puppet classes into the Foreman, and everything is done in the Foreman, and we are not using ERA, we are not using manifest directory, so in that case Foreman is really the ANC for Puppet as well.
Okay, yeah, I was curious as to why would hosts be staged through Jenkins changing the environment of the host, if that's what I understood.
No, we're never changing the environment of the host, because you never know what kind of code was in the other environment, which you cannot remove. So when we move a host from an environment, we actually decommission it and reprovision it in a new environment. So it's from scratch, completely empty again.
Oh, okay. And this is all right. I'm trying to imagine like what kind of software is deployed on this hosts that you can so easily remove and restart again.
Pretty much everything. We have PHP applications, we have Tomcat applications, we have Ruby applications with customers. One of the stacks we were actually running Mono on CentOS, which was completely managed from a Foreman-based perspective, where all the Puppet runs were being reported there. But everything which is about software deployment, which is about deploying the Puppet code, because Puppet code is also just software, goes through Jenkins. So all the updates and all the upgrades, even the security patches, are being pushed through Jenkins. There's no actual other lifecycle management. And when a package is successful, whether it's Puppet code or whether it's a Java application or PHP code, when it's in one stage successful, it gets promoted, it gets uploaded to a different repository in Pulp, and Puppet ensure latest from a package, make sure that the new code base is being deployed on the other environment. And moving machines to another environment is something which we did ages ago, and then we ran into serious troubles because there's stuff you define in some environments which you do not explicitly not undefine in another environment, but it still stays there. If you don't purge, for example, your Vest app and you move a machine from one environment to another and it gets different mounts, well, by moving it from one environment to another environment, you don't purge your mounts. The mounts stay around. And your machine is not as clean anymore as you would want it to be. So decommissioning and reprovisioning it is a much cleaner way to do that.
Okay, I think I get it then. How about things that actually cannot be removed as easily, such as database servers and things like that?
Replication, high availability, distributed storage, figure it out. If you're doing this on a production machine, everything we try to build will be clustered, so the data will always be in one machine. And production, well, you're not going to pull a machine out of production if you're not planning on really decommissioning it. We're never going to move a machine from production to, say, development. So that's not going to be a problem. And with all the others, development, acceptance platforms, usually there's not such a big problem if you hold them down for 15 minutes. So you can frequently do that. But for all the other things, most of the applications we design, whether it has MySQL as a backend or Postgres or Mongo, make sure that we make those setups high available. So there's always a couple of nodes you can pull out of the setup.
Oh, yeah, that sounds very elaborate. That's really nice. So, have you guys been looking into any plugins to do the management of not of host environments, but of package environments, kind of? So I'm basically wondering if you've been looking at Catel or you're dealing with RPM packages.
So we're dealing with RPM packages, and I think we were probably one of the earliest adopters of Pulp around. We've seen the pains. We still don't know why you need to store packaged data, which is really structured data inside a non-relational database, which is probably the majority of the problems. But we also couldn't live without it anymore, because I don't want to maintain 20 repositories manually. I don't want to do the syncing. I want to be duplication, all that stuff. But in a way, it's not integrated with what we're mostly using. It's not. Foreman has no knowledge of Pulp.
Okay.
We did about a year and a half ago. We did one project where a customer was interested in actually having licenses and subscriptions managed, and we did a proof of concept with
Candlepin.
What's it called again?
Candlepin.
Yeah, with Candlepin. And then the customer figured out that was a broken business model, and we dropped that also.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. Are you using any plugins of Foreman right now then, or just bare Foreman, like Discovery or default host group, Papa DB Foreman, whatever?
No, bare Foreman.
I don't think we're using any plugins at the moment, no.
So the way I see Catelo and the Foreman is that if you start playing with that, it will take you a lot more time just to manage both of them and to start playing with the repository and stuff like that. So while we already had everything in place with Pulp, it does not worth it to move to Catelo. So we had pulp running a long time before actually Catelo became usable. So
Okay. Uh, and you guys have never tried Discovery, or it's just a use case that you can use? Put in machines on Pixie and have them discover Foreman if you haven't looked at it.
I've never looked at what Discovery does, but everything we provision, if we build an infrastructure, every single component is going to be built infrastructure as code base. So discovering other components of the network is something well, it would be kind of very fine if there's nothing that we didn't build, but usually we know what we built because it's in the code base.
Okay, no, but it's not only that, it's also that if you're building, so right now in the latest version of Discovery, if you're building machines and they have like certain characteristics. So I'm trying to think of some rule. So they have a host name that looks like X. You can create a rule and make Foreman auto provision that all the machines that that comply with this rule into a certain host group. So you can say, okay, I'm going to make all machines that boot in this network with this domain to be part of my MySQL cluster, whatever.
Well,
so it's
in a way,
yeah.
We solved that before Foreman was around because we have still a lot of setups which have nodes.pp around who actually match on node names, where we have standardization on the node names. So a web box is a database box which has DP in there is a database server. A box which has proxy in there is reverse proxy. And the node classification matches on those substrings and includes roles based on that.
Interesting.
So where we're not actually using external node classifier.
Yeah, it sounds like the same principle, but a different tool, I guess, right?
Yeah, things that worked 6 or 7 years ago already by just matching on host names and including at that time roles in this moment.
Yeah, it's not only host names. Like I mean, there are many rules that you can use. I can take a look actually very quickly. But yeah, you're right. Like it's the goal is the same. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're probably good to finish in a bit. But if you guys want to give like some feedback of Foreman or any features that you guys think it really need right now, or any problems that you've run into lately that you think they might be regressions or they might be security issues. Well, they're them now, but
what I am looking for the moment is the support for Puppet 4. So that's something that I'm waiting for. So I am curious to try out all that new Puppet stuff, and I know that there is a lot of work to do with K4, with the Foreman installer and stuff like that to get that working. So I still hope it will come with 1.9 so we can actually try that out. So that would be a nice addition to switch to Puppet 4 at a certain point.
Yeah, 1.9 is almost certainly not going to come with Puppet 4 support because I don't remember the exact date, but I said on the main list that it's going to be branched relatively soon, so that means that it's not going to be there. For 1.10, it'll be great actually. So is that a blocker at some of your clients or?
No, it's not a blocker. It's more for testing and to be prepared for the future. But Puppet 3 will be supported for a certain time by Puppet Lab, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's just to be prepared for the next iteration of Puppet.
Okay.
Yeah, if Daniel would be on this call, that's one of our Dutch colleagues, he would be saying chef integration.
Yeah. If you've been looking at the Foreman Chef plugin, it does it works for reporting. I think it doesn't work for the external node classifier as external node classifier yet. Maybe if your friend hasn't looked into that, you can look for it, and it has its own manual now. I don't know how actively developed it is right now. I think Marek Hulan in the RC channel can answer for that. But yeah, so Chef is like it's even higher priority than Ansible or Salt in your list.
Yeah, definitely. I think what we're currently seeing is that there's two main configuration management frameworks in use, which is Chef and Puppet. Salt, I think over the past 12 months we had one customer talking about it. And Ansible we see mostly used as orchestration and not really as configuration management. So it does fit to the part, but it's still in our customer base, majority Puppet, Chef growing, and the others are pretty much non-existent.
All right. All right. The reason why I mentioned Salt is because the Salt plugin it actually provides the ENC feature, also the reporting feature. I'm looking now at the Chef manual, and yes, you get the Chef status, you get the reports, you can add it to trends if you want, and you get the facts as well. But yeah, I don't remember exactly why do we not have the configuration. I don't know how to say exactly, like how to tell Chef to set X configuration for one host, but I think it was just not easy to make Chef to do that. There's a talk by Dominic on at ChefConf, I think last year, about the state of the integration, and a small demo if anyone wants to see it. I'll probably add when I edit this video. Okay, so it's good then. I'll actually ask Marek if he can possibly talk with Daniel and see what is he missing on the plugin or whatever. All right. So, do you guys have any questions or anything?
Fine.
You're fine. Okay.
You know where to find.
Yeah. Well, what?
I know where to find you guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. At any time now, actually. Like, I think only the Pacific and East Asia time zone, there's not going to be many people around, but during any other time frame, there's going to be someone on the RC channel. So yeah, I'll be editing this video to add links to the relevant projects and to your pull requests when we talked about the pull request and so forth. Thank you for joining, especially at this time in Belgium, it's gonna be like 10 or so, right? Or
Yeah.
midnight.
11.
Yeah. Okay. 11. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Hope to see you around at some point, maybe at the next conflict management camp again. So, goodbye.
Yeah, bye bye.
Right. See you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks.